just another Killteam podcast, Killteam review. This one for Killteam Ravenor. Thank you to GW for sending us a preview copy so that we can let everyone know what we think about Killteam Typhon. Very excited to be here. Travis also did the Battleclade review, so if you haven't already looked at that, be sure to check that out as well. Let's get started with the Ravenors, though. Right off the bat, I'm going to be using a tier guide to assign a letter rating to all of the tools and items that the team has access to. S tier is problematically strong, unfun for the game. D tier is bad, don't use this. The great news is this team doesn't have either of those ratings, but I will be using these in future videos. A tier is very strong, use it all the time, plan for it, build your whole plan around it, all that. B tier is situationally very strong, keep an eye out for this opportunity, but you don't really have to plan for it as much as the A tier tools. And then C tier is fine, they're better options, and it's especially fine for casual games. Or it also just works for things that are very situational. Moving right along, the overall rating that I give this team is A tier. I think they are probably pretty similar in strength to Rekka crew. I think they're going to be pretty good, but not absolutely like blowing anyone out of the water. They're not like Sanctifiers, and they're way stronger than the Vespid Stingwing. I think they're fine. No one's really going to bully them, and it's not really going to be hopeless to play against them, although brace yourselves for some emotional damage with how crazy the tunnel can potentially be if you have never played against it before, especially. Their weaknesses will mostly be universal concepts and well-placed razor wire. Universal concepts being things like wait until they're activated and then go smack them around. They've got a little bit of tools to deal with that, but I mean, play well and you can win, as or against them. Overall strategy, you only have 5 operatives and your opponent is probably going to want to avoid the tunnel, especially when you and your opponent have played enough games as and against the Ravenors. The tunnel is the absolute centerpiece of this team. So you, as the Ravenors player, want to be sure that they can't avoid the tunnel. So you want to identify the most valuable positions on the map and tunnel straight there so that your opponent can't avoid it and still score points. Also, you don't really want to stray too far from the tunnel because Ravenors are terrible without the tunnel, and each Ravenor can be easily killed if you're not careful, but also if you are careful, you can get 2 to 4 kills per Ravenor, easy peasy. So hold on to your hats. Tools and tech for the faction rules. I give all of these tools A tier strength. You 100% should be thinking about this at all times while playing the team and using this at all times. Planning for it, leaning all the way in. Tunnel and burrow go hand in hand. You build a tunnel throughout the game, which you put a 20mm token anywhere touching your board edge, and then each turn is a strategic gambit. You place another tunnel token within 5 inches of the first one. Considering that there is a little bit of space to the token, it kind of feels more like the tunnel grows 6 inches each turn. Since you have that little bit of extra space there. And then burrow is your action that you can perform to enter or exit the tunnel. It is a 1 AP action, and it is that simple. Important to note that you can burrow with a conceal order, so you can pop out of the ground with a conceal order and use your silent shooting attacks, or pop out of the ground with a conceal order and mulch somebody while you're still hidden to be not able to be shot back, which is huge. Also important to note, when you burrow, you subtract 2 inches from your movement. So if you pop out of the tunnel, you can only move 5 or charge 7, since the native move characteristic of the entire team is 7 inches. The other final special faction rule for the team is Predatory Instincts, which is similar to the Astartes keyword that we've seen before. It allows you to fight twice, but not shoot twice, which is one of the big differences. It allows you to counteract while you have a conceal order, which is the same as Astartes, and it allows you to change orders while you counteract. So you can flip to engage when you counteract, or you can flip to conceal when you counteract, which is huge, especially because you have so much silent shooting on this team. And you can burrow during a counteract for free as long as you do not perform a mission action during the same counteraction. Good stuff. Very strong. When it comes to the strategy ploys, we've got 4 of them. The top 3 I rate as A tier, and the bottom is B tier. It is strong, it's just you can't be spending all your command points all the time, and this would be the first one. If you're only going to do 3 ploys on your Ultra Violence turn, Whipcord Emergence would be the one to leave out. It is good, so maybe just do all 4. But jumping right in, Writhe Out of Sight is a ploy that lets you burrow as a strategic gambit. The name implies that you can only slink away with it, but you can actually use it aggressively. It's just the burrow action at any time. And you can move and fall back 2 inches before doing so. So if you are caught up in melee with someone, you can expand your tunnel to get within 2 inches of one of your Ravenors, and then use this ploy as your next strategic gambit to fall back for 2 inches to touch the tunnel, and then burrow to slither away. Pretty slippery. Whether you use it to slither away or to aggress, it is a very powerful tool for manipulating initiative. And the craziness is, it's not your only tool to manipulate initiative, and there will be more on that later. The next ploy that we're going to talk about is Death from Below. This is the meat and potatoes of where all of your killing power comes from. You get balanced in melee if you perform the burrow action, and you have ceaseless in melee if you are on your tunnel. So if you burrow out and stay on your tunnel, you have balanced and ceaseless, and you're really going to be smoking everybody. So that is, you want to use that all the time. That's where all your killing power comes from, like I said. The shooting is all pretty unreliable. Like, it's you know, a good little bonus thing to do here and there, especially with a lot of silent shooting. You can get away with some stuff, but the bulk of your killing is here. Tunnel Lurkers is amazing. It just means while you are on your tunnel, you have light cover, essentially. So you could tunnel through an enemy that you're trying to trap and kill, and then on your first activation, you pop out with a Conceal Order straight into their combat range. You mulch that operative, and then do a silent shooting attack at someone within 3, because pretty much all of your silent shooting attacks are 3-inch range, because it is your whippy tails, just whipping around and chopping people with silent shooting attacks. Tunnel Lurkers is amazing, because once you pop out and smush somebody, you have a Conceal Order, you're on your tunnel, you're in light cover, even though it looks like you're standing out in the open, because the way the tunnel works is the whole line that connects your tunnel tokens is 20 millimeters. As long as you are just, all you got to be is on that line, and you are on the tunnel. So you get the benefit of that, which is amazing. Even if you do use engage orders, because there's plenty of stuff that, you know, things you want to shoot for that. If you want to charge fair and square, you want to do all that. Tunnel Lurkers will give you light cover, which you can stack with your camouflage equipment, which we'll talk about later. Whipcord Emergence lets you reroll an armor save if you have burrowed during the turning point, and you can reroll all of your armor saves if you're on your tunnel, which is very good. It's just not quite as good as the other ones. You don't really want to be getting shot all the time. You mostly are a pretty fighty team. Even your biggest shooter, the Venom Spitter, we'll kind of talk about that as well. He's kind of like a brawler, just like everyone else. When it comes to the firefight ploys, I put these they all can fit into B tier at some point, although Subterranean Horror can often creep into A, and Slithering Evasion can sometimes slide into C. Burrowing Strike is very strong, and you should use it as often as you can. It just might not come up all the time, and it is when you do a burrowing action, you do a D3 damage to everyone within your control range. So if you can pop out of the ground and catch 2 or 3 operatives here, you are doing a lot of damage. Kind of the same thing if a bunch of people crowd around you and then you burrow, you can do a D3 damage to everyone there. That's crazy. It's just, it's a little easy for the opponent to play around. Unless you tunnel straight into them and do it as your first activation. It's probably the easiest way to use this. Pretty strong. Subterranean Horror lets you fight first as long as you are on the tunnel. So if someone charges you while they're on the tunnel and they try to hit you with a power sword, you can just chop them to bits and just mulch them and eat them alive before they even swing. Very, very strong. Really compensates for the fact that you only have 5 operatives and they are pretty squishy. If you compare the durability to Space Marines, you've got 20 wounds on these operatives with a 5-up armor save versus Space Marines have 14 wounds on a 3-up. In shooting, it's probably pretty similar. Maybe you're a little squishier here. I don't know if someone can do the math and throw it in the comments. But in melee is kind of where you're more durable, because without armor saves, the more wounds goes a longer way. Plus, Subterranean Horror makes it pretty hard to approach you in melee. Slithering Evasion lets you fall back or charge out of combat, which can be super duper clutch. It just won't necessarily come up every game, because if you do want to get out of combat, you might just want to fight your way out of it. Or if you do want to get out of combat, Slithering Evasion might be a better option. But when this does matter, it's going to be very important. It just, like I said, might not be every game. The last firefight ploy here is Death Frenzy. This is when you die, you explode, just doing damage to everyone around you. It's either D3 or D3 plus 1. I probably should have written this down. But either way, it's great. Between Burrowing Strike, Death Frenzy, the fact that you have access to Poison Weapon on a couple of these operatives, which we'll also talk about, and the fact that you have equipment, which is Acid Blood, which we'll also talk about. We've got a lot of options for chip damage here, which is amazing. It helps a lot with fighting other elites. When it comes to equipment, like I was just mentioning, Acid Blood, pretty much everything here I put as B tier, including the Acid Blood. Every time someone resolves a melee dice against you, you roll a d6, and on a 5-up, you do a damage to them. Especially helpful against elites, because you really do not want to let enemy elites survive on low wounds, and if 1 or 2 extra wounds can make the difference, that's huge. Less important against like 7 wound, 8 wound operatives, since you're going to be killing them in 2 hits anyways, and an extra damage here or there doesn't really matter. I mean, it might sometimes, but it's pretty good, especially against elites. Chromatospore Camouflage is just camo cloaks for your entire team, but Tyranid flavored. So if you could retain a cover save, you can retain 2 instead as a result of this equipment, which is great. A lot of the shooting in this game, though, is like hard flanks. You can be out in the open a lot. If someone gets within 2 inches and shoots you, this goes away. So it's not like super amazing all the time, but it is strong when it goes off. Heightened Senses is another one. This is the Manipulate Initiative that I was mentioning earlier, your other option here. It requires you to have a Ravenor that is underground and an enemy to be within 5 inches of your tunnel, and then you can reroll your initiative once per game. It is powerful, but you have other tools that kind of manipulate as well, which makes it slightly redundant, but still, modifying initiative is very, very strong. Metamorphic Flesh is the last equipment option. I put this one also at B tier. It's every time you activate a Tyranid, it is not counteract, it is just regular activate. You heal a D3, which is especially great with a leader. Your leader has an ability to potentially damage himself, to potentially give you command points, and having the Metamorphic Flesh just completely takes the risk out of that, which is amazing. And then otherwise, maybe like once or twice per game, it will come into play where a Ravenor survives when it otherwise would not have, or a Ravenor can activate as though it is not injured when it otherwise would not have been able to do so. So I think it's pretty important. It's a little bit out of your control whether it's helpful or not, but it is very helpful when it's helpful, so definitely worth taking. When it comes to the operatives, good news for all the people that love one-box teams. I mean, who doesn't? This is a one-box team. The warriors are pretty much absolutely useless. The only reason to build warriors is, I guess, for Big Hammer. In Killteam, all the specialists are better than the warrior. The warrior gets lethal 5 against enemy operatives that are wounded. So if they're like missing a single wound, you're lethal 5. But you really just want to be crushing people and not having to fight twice to kill people. So that is, and then otherwise their stats are the same as everyone else on the team. We've got a 7-inch movement, 20 wounds, 5-up armor save, 5 attacks on 3, 4, 5, and then a 3-inch silent bolt pistol shooting attack, which is your whippy tail chopping people up. When it comes to the specialists, the Ravenor Prime is your leader. Definitely A tier. Turns off enemy rerolls, disrupts. It's like a Reaver and a Phobos Foxbreaker all in once. Craziness. It gives you extra command points. Turns off enemies' rerolls. Makes enemies count as 1 lower for contesting things. And forces enemies to pay extra action points to do actions while near the Ravenor Prime. Pretty much just cruise out into a big cluster, kill a couple people, disrupt a couple people. Huge value. Very strong. Also, just like chilling out and playing it safe to get extra command points is good because the team is very command point hungry. All of your ploys are super good. You want to be using them all the time. Tremor Scythe is the next operative on the list. You've got reactive power. Essentially, the operative is on guard at all times in your tunnel. As soon as someone gets within 2 inches of your tunnel, you can interrupt them and pop out and chop them up. Pretty good. If you do that, it does actually bring your team down to being a 4 activation team. So you really want to be mindful of that and like planning for counteracts and stuff like that, especially because your action economy is super limited in the first place. Next on the list, we've got the Wrecker. This is your main bruiser operative. It's the only operative on the team with a 4-up armor save. It reduces incoming damage of 4 or more, which is pretty strong, and it has better damage output. Cruise missile all around. The damage output shows up in the Whippy Tail gains piercing, and then the melee has a rule called Crush, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. Moving down the list, we've got the Fell Talon. The Fell Talon is amazing. Just an absolute smasher. You've got an extra shooting poison attack. You've got pretty savage melee, and then you have like a poison toxic lunge attack just to spend an action point to do D3+2 and poison someone, and we'll chat about that a little bit more a little bit later as well. The least valuable specialist on the team, in my opinion, is the Venom Spitter. It is your only source of long-range shooting, but if you compare it side by side with other important shooters, particularly Intercessors or the Intercessor Gunner, it is just like copy-paste but worse. It is still a great operative. I mean, it's a worse shooter, but it is still a brawler. 20 wounds with 5 attacks, 4/5 damage is pretty strong. It's just like it looks like an important shooter, but if you build your game plan around doing a lot of heavy lifting with the Venom Spitter, you are going to be very disappointed. Pretty much every team in the game is going to outshoot you. So bring the Venom Spitter always, but don't build your game plan around spitting on people. More specific on the Ravenor Prime, this is your leader. You have the ability called Synaptic Link, which is a strategic gambit to roll a d6. If it equals the turning point, nothing happens. If it's higher than the turning point, you gain a command point, and if it is lower, you take damage equal to the amount you rolled. So the later in the game it is, the riskier it is to use. Like I said, the metamorphic flesh equipment choice kind of offsets that risk a little bit. And you are very CP hungry, so you are really hoping to gain an extra command point or 2 out of the Ravenor Prime. Meanwhile, the Ravenor Prime can turn off enemies' rerolls, which includes their armor save rerolls. Very, very strong. Worsens enemy control, forces them to spend extra action points. So you really want to just like tie people up, kill a couple things, and then sit in a very disruptive spot so people can't score till they kill your Ravenor Prime, who's going to be a tough cookie. Moving right along, we've got the Tremor Scythe, like I mentioned before. This operative can charge from conceal if it has burrowed, done the burrow action. So if you pop out of the ground, you can charge, sneak, squish people. Pretty good. And then it is also underground on guard at all times and can interrupt any opponent that gets too close to the tunnel. So if you charge up to one of my other vulnerable Ravenors that's above ground, but you get too close to the tunnel, the Tremor Scythe is going to pop out, interrupt you, slap you to pieces. And then once you do fight, you can use Subterranean Horror, like we saw earlier, to fight first. Pretty strong. Wrecker, the Bruiser. He reduces the incoming damage. We've got the piercing on the tail shooting for the 3-inch 3/4 piercing. Pretty good. Some of the better shooting in the team, actually, secretly. Kind of sneakily. It almost rivals the Venom Spitter, although it is only 3-inch range. The melee crush, the way it works is every time you resolve an attack die against an enemy, you roll off, and you do extra damage equal to the result, the difference, to a maximum of 3, and you get a +1 to the roll if they have a wounds characteristic of 9 or less. So starting off with 4/5 and potentially doing 3 extra damage per hit, you can swing for a crit and deal 8 damage in a single hit, which is massive. That plus the popping out of the ground and doing a D3 to people, and the acid splash, if they chop you, you take an extra 1. This is a pretty killy model here. Very important. Fell Talon is maybe my favorite. Toxic Lunge is 1 action point to attack someone within 2 inches, dealing a D3+2 and poisoning them. Unlike Plague Marines and other variants that we've seen like this one just like straight up poisons, even if you roll bad. Very good. You can also do the Toxic Lunge while you are underground, is the only action besides Burrow that this team can perform while underground. And essentially, if someone is on the tunnel, you can perform the Toxic Lunge action if the Fell Talon is underground to do the same effect that we described, deal the damage, poison the enemy. Besides the 3-inch shooting, this operative also has a 6-inch poisonous spit shooting attack. It's just 3/4 with poison, silent, and 6-inch range. It also has lethal 5 and shock in melee, which is fantastic because you're going to be getting plenty of crits, especially if you stack up for all the rerolls. And shock is very strong, so this one smacks. The Venom Spitter, basically just as good in melee as any other Ravenor, and he's still a 20 wound killer. Although if you copy-paste an Intercessor Gunner and compare the shooting stats, it is strictly worse. The Intercessor Gunner has 4 dice balanced, so essentially 5, but it caps at no more than 4 hits. 4/5 Pierce 1. This one has 5 attacks without any rerolls or anything that makes it more helpful. That can be 4/5 Pierce 1, and then you also have a blast profile. Kind of like the Gunner. Your blast is a little bit better on the Venom Spitter, but in order to beef it up, you need to do an extra 1 AP action, which gives you unlimited range, otherwise it's 8-inch range, and +1 attack dice, which brings you from 4 up to 5. So your shooting is pretty mid if you don't inflate for it, and when you do, it is still not really better than an average Space Marine, which, you know, is unusually good, so that's pretty good. But if you do try to do a straight-up shootout, you're going to lose to pretty much any team that shoots in any capacity, because you'll take this one shot, maybe do like 8 damage to something if you're lucky, and then they shoot you back 20 million times, and you need to spend another action point to charge up your gun to have full range again, and that is not efficient at all. It is a pretty good shooting attack, and half of his power is just spooking people to keep their heads down. But if someone just runs out fearlessly out in the open and you shoot them for a disappointing amount of damage, it's kind of your biggest nightmare. Combos and playstyle. You only have 5 operatives, so you need to be proactive. You can't wait for your opponent to wait you out and then hit you when you run out of activations. It is helpful that you have a lot of silent attacks, so if people get too close, you can still whip them with your tail. You can still burrow away and do all that. But you probably do want to be proactive in things where you just like go and take the things you need and score the points you got to do right away. So to avoid your opponent being able to avoid the tunnel, you identify the spots on the board where you need to be and where your opponent needs to be to score things, and you just plow on in with the tunnel and start squishing people. You can leave 1 Ravenor to babysit your home objective, probably the Venom Spitter. Don't try to be too ambitious with the tunnel, because if you do the tunnel wrong and you don't threaten enough things, or you don't threaten the right things, you pretty much just lose. Speaking of which, with the weaknesses, if you do the tunnel wrong, you pretty much just definitely lose. Also, learning to play with only 5 operatives is definitely going to be a challenge, especially if you haven't done anything like that before. 5 operatives with an interrupt being available is like, you can even plan for counteract while playing against other elites, which is kind of crazy. Also be very careful not to stray too far from the tunnel unless there's a huge payoff or absolutely no risk, because once you stray from the tunnel, you are very, very vulnerable. Your action economy is also super limited, so if you are just wasting action points on things that aren't really having a massive effect, you are really going to be suffering. So be sure to be razor sharp with all of your actions there. How do they fare? The team rocks. I think they're super fun. Like I said at the beginning, I think they're pretty similar. They're going to be similar power level to the Rekka crew, I think, where they're going to be fun and cool. Maybe have less consistency problems than Rekka crew, but be kind of a similar power level. They look fun. They look cool. And I think they're a little spooky with the fact that you definitely can't hit them first, because the tunnel you can't attack a Ravenor that's underground, which is a little spooky, but they really do just die once they're out there. And they have a lot of landmines to watch out for in just like efficiency problems if you're not careful. So it might take a little bit of practice, but they are a very fun and cool team. A 1-box team, I think it's gonna be super fun. Well, that's pretty much it. So thanks again for listening, and see you next time.